Okay, we're continuing our shiurim in Daas Tevunos. As always, the shiurim are nishmas, Daniella Sheina, Yehoshua Falik, and neshama should be nishmas and as chus for her neshama. We left off in paragraph Lamed Vav 36, where the Seichel was explaining the idea of, the neshama said, what's this idea of yichud, this idea of oneness of Hashem? Isn't that very obvious? There's only one Hashem, and there is no other. Ve'enzu also, like what's the big complication about this, that we need a whole Sefer? So the Seichel begins and saying that's for sure, that's true bichlal in the general sense of it, but to understand this, we need to understand it deeper. And it says in the pasuk, "Ata hareis ladas," that obviously there's something we need to know, to see, to know. And now he's launching now into, so far it's going to be the longest paragraph of the Sefer up until this point, and he's going to explain now what the implications of this concept of yichud are. We have the idea that there's only one Hashem, but what that means and what the implications are, what that translates into, is very significant. That's what he's going to get into now. When we say that Hashem is one, it's not enough to understand that He is one in His existence, in who He is. Meaning that there is no other necessary being other than He. And that there is no other creator other than He. In other words, that's not all that is included in Yichud. Now that's obvious. When we say there's only one God, that means that He's the only creator and He's the only one that has to be. But there's something further to this. There's more we have to understand. That there is no other force or power other than He. And there is nothing that is running His world, or to any creature and creation in His world, Elahu. That's also part of Yichud. Not just that there's only one God and one creator, there's only one power in the universe, and therefore everything in the universe is powered and done by Him. There is nothing that stands in His way. There's nothing that holds Him back. There's nothing that stops His will from happening. When we say yichud, we mean Hashem's shlita, His rulership, His dominion is singular and one and complete. And this is the idea that is explained in the pasuk. Like we said earlier, it's me, it's I'm the one who kills and who brings to life. And there's nobody who could save other than me. Like we said before, in all the various psukim, there is no other force, there is no other koach in the world. He is one, and who will answer to Him? And we say, who's going to tell you, Hashem, what to do? You have to understand that this is absolutely fundamental to our emunah, as I'm going to explain further with Hashem's help. Now, what he's explaining now is that he's going to explain to us that this concept of yichud, the concept of yichud as he just explained it to us, with the implications that Hashem is the only force, there is no other power, there is no other element, nothing else that can stop anything or cause anything other than Hashem. He said this is in contrast to five major theologies, five major worldviews that exist, that are all contrary to yichud, that are all seeking a different answer to why bad can happen. If God is all good and He's all powerful, how can there be such a thing as bad? So there are five different philosophies, theologies, that the Ramchal is now going to delineate for us, and is explaining to us that these are five things that are contrary to the concept of yichud, and our emunah, the emunah that a Jew is required to have, is the opposite of these. Some of these are in the types of mistakes that were made by the pagan idol worshippers. And there are those that are just by the masses of people that are not sophisticated in terms of their theological thinking, more or less atheists, which we'll see. Some of those that exist among the Gentile nations of the world, referring specifically here to Christianity and what their perspective is. And there's the perspective of those Poshei Yisrael, meaning the wicked members of Klal Yisrael, like in the olden times, like the evil kings, like Melech Menashe, the evil kings in Klal Yisrael. They also had a very specific perspective, a specific hashkafa that was contrary to this concept of yichud. So now he's going to explain this again, breaking down into 5 different groups. The first 2 being pagan forms of idol worship or avodah zarah, different forms of belief in other forces in the world. There are 2 types of ovdei avodah zarah, 2 types of idol worshiping that took place. The first one held that Hashem is elevated, exalted among everything that's lowly here, and he doesn't pay attention, he doesn't look and see what's going on down here. In other words, they believe in God, they believe in the concept of a creator, a prime mover, whatever, all different terms that you can give to it, but this God is exalted, he's elevated, he's in another place, and he doesn't pay attention to what's going on down here. There are other forces that exist. There are other, elements, angels and things like this. Like the constellations, the stars in the sky. All the heavenly. And angelic features and these types of things. Shema mashgichim ba'olam. These are what control the world. These are what make things happen over here in the world. Constellations and horoscopes. The belief that there's an actual effect that is taking place from the stars, or the spiritual elements behind the stars. And not only that it has an effect, which maybe is somewhat of a Jewish concept, but that they have their own consciousness. They have their own sentience that is above Hashem's. That has some sort of a control other than God. And that's why they would worship them. They would worship the sun and the moons. They would make altars to them. They would try to get the God of thunder and rain to be kind to them. So they would appeal to that God with that avodah. So again, there's a concept that there is this God, this creator, this incredible intelligence that created the world and set everything in motion, but he has nothing to do with us now. He's separated himself and he set up this whole system of lower level intermediaries. Hamina Sheini Amru, the second form of avodah zarah, says like this: Chas v'chalila. Again, God forbid that this is true. Shtei reshuyos heim. This is like God and the devil. There's 2 sides. There's good and evil. Echad pol tov ve'echad pol ra. There's one force for good in the universe and one force for evil. Ba'amram ein hefech below hafcho. You can't have something without its opposite. So if there's a good God up in heaven, then there has to also be a bad demon, a bad devil, something against him. Ubeyoso akel yisbarach shemo tachlis tov yichas shalom kenegdo mishu tachlis hara. Just like everything we believe about how good God is, so then there's going to be this power, Satan, devil, whatever you want to say, who's going to be the perfect evil, right? Keneged him, against him. And all the things that take place in the world, famine, war, salvation, all ups and downs that happen, they're battling it out. This is like, maybe like the Greek gods, these types of pagan things, there's good and evil forces at work and they're, fighting against each other. The Hurm is the Arhurm is, okay, quotes a Gemara in Sanhedrin explaining, there's, this one heavenly power and another heavenly power, and they're forever, locked in battle. That one of these ovdei avodah zarah said. Okay, so these are 2 forms of idol worship or force worship, pagan worship of ascribing actual consciousness and power to other forces within nature or forces within the world, and they would appeal to them and pray to them and do all sorts of service to them in order to get what they wanted out of the world. And again, this is how to explain how is there good and evil, how is this thing going on. Hadasa Shlishis Hidasa Hamon Anashim. This is another perspective now. This is the third opinion. This is more or less atheism. That the world works according to nature. Maybe God set it up, maybe He didn't. We'll see. But the world just functions. There's such a thing as randomness. There's such a thing as nature. There's such a thing as the laws of nature, and that's what makes everything happen over here. It's their effort, and their focus and their stick-to-itiveness. That's what helps them. And it's when they're lazy, that's why they failed. It's all up to me. Like the Torah warns us from saying that it's up to me. Right? In other words, these are people who believe. This is really probably what most people nowadays believe. Maybe not so many idol worshippers anymore, like in the first 2 categories, but many people today are basically atheists, or don't believe that God really involves Himself in the world, and certainly that He doesn't change nature or change things or is not affected by prayer. My activity is what matters, and when I work hard, that's when I succeed, and when I'm lazy and that's why I fail. like the Torah says, Kol chivotzim yadi asal yisachel. Is it? Od yomru kol tali b'mazel, or they'll say it's all up to mazel, it's all up to luck and chance. Umikra echad lakol ve'ein kan ela derech hativi lo yoser im lahitiv im lahera. And there's only one way, which is the way of nature, whether good or for bad. It's just random, and that's what happens. Okay, we'll continue Mitzvah Hashem the next time.